Okay. Good afternoon on this rainy afternoon. This morning, the mayor will make remarks in just a few moments. I just want to introduce those who are at the podium with me. We have Chief of Department Jim O'Neill on my left, Chief of Transit Police Joe Fox, Chief of Detectives Bob Boyce. Speaking, Deputy Commissioner Jesse Tisch, who will be updating you on ShotSpotter and some of our smartphone technology. To my right, we have Tommy Patel, who's now heading up citywide emergency services. We have Dermot Shea, who will be speaking and updating you on the first quarter crime statistics, January, February, March, and trending. And then Carlos Gomez, Chief of Patrol. Carlos will be speaking to you relative to department efforts as the warmer weather is now coming into play, dealing with the ATV dirt bike problem that several areas of the city experience each year, and the very significant department efforts that we've been making that will expand and hopefully will involve you with getting public assistance for us to identify where these characters are parking these vehicles. With that, the mayor's going to open up the press conference. I'll speak shortly for a short period of time after him before going into the three presentations on the technology, on the crime stats, and on the ATV dirt bike issue. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. Commissioner, I want to congratulate you and all the leadership of the NYPD and the men and women of the NYPD, because the statistics we'll go over today, the results from the first quarter of this year are outstanding, and the men and women of the NYPD have a lot to be proud of today. First of all, our community saw the fewest murders and shootings of any quarter in recorded history. I want to say that again. We saw the fewest murders and shootings of any quarter in recorded history. An extraordinary 21% drop in murders and a 14% decrease in shootings compared to the same time last year. There's no question that this progress is further evidence of the extraordinary capacity of the NYPD and the strategies that are being used effectively. Now, this also connects to increased focus on getting guns off our streets and increasingly effective strategies. And this quarter, the NYPD got 818 guns out of our neighborhoods. That's a 15.4% increase in gun seizures compared to the same point a year ago. And gun arrests are up 13.3%, also compared to the same point a year ago. So, extraordinary progress on reducing homicides, reducing shootings, increasing the number of gun seizures, increasing the number of gun arrests. The human impact of this, think about for a moment how many lives have been saved, how many people are walking the streets safely because of this extraordinary achievement, and how many more people will be safe because these guns have been taken off the streets and because the people who had them have been arrested. When you contrast this report to what we used to know in this city, it is an extraordinary testament to the consistency of the progress that the NYPD has made. You know, what began with Commissioner Bratton, with Jack Maple, with ComStat, has just continued to deepen. And I remember vividly what things were like in this city when we had over 2,000 murders a year, when even walking down a busy street, you had to look over your shoulder. I remember how life was, how many people left because they thought the city couldn't possibly succeed. Well, the NYPD turned that around, but they are not resting on their laurels. They're continuing to make progress, and it's really exceptional. We are the safest big city in America. This quarter's statistics prove it once again. And this is while, at the same time, we have an increasing population. And this is an important part of the equation. The NYPD is making us safer while more and more people come here. We've now surpassed 8.5 million residents for the first time in our history. We're well on our way to 60 million tourists a year. We have more jobs than we've ever had in our history, almost 4.3 million. That means there's more commuters coming in every day. All of that would suggest more and more activity that the NYPD has to deal with. Well, with all of that additional activity, with all of that additional human presence, the NYPD continues to drive crime down. Over the last 2 years, total major crime categories combined, a decrease of 5.8% in terms of overall crime reduction. I think New Yorkers have gotten used to these extraordinary achievements, and that's a good thing. But rest assured that all of us at City Hall and all of us at One Police Plaza are looking for the next frontier at all times. You're going to hear today about some of the extraordinary additional improvements that have been made in technology. I want to thank Deputy Commissioner Jessica Tisch for her tremendous efforts. I'm already seeing what it means for our men and women in uniform, how much it's improving the work they do, how much it's helping them to be the best professionals they can be, and how it's keeping them safer, and how much they appreciate that investment. We're going to keep making those investments. And the investments we're making in counter-terrorism efforts are timely and necessary. The 500-plus members of the Critical Response Command, at a point in history when so many parts of the world realize they're dealing with ever more complex and intense terror threats, and they're just not ready, unfortunately, to deal with the sheer scope of them. New York City is ready. We're the most prepared city in America. And we recognize that we've faced these threats time and again, that the NYPD, working with our federal partners, has thwarted these threats time and again, and we're expanding our capacity all the time. And everything I've just said is true before the addition of the 2,000 additional cops we will have by the end of this year on patrol. So the first quarter really augurs well for this city. It shows the NYPD is on the right path and a lot more to come. And again, the men and women of this department have a lot to be proud of. Just a few words in Spanish. Acabamos de pasar los 3 meses con la menor cantidad de tiroteos y asesinatos en los anales de nuestra historia. Y quiero felicitar a los hombres y mujeres del NYPD por mantener a nuestras comunidades tan seguras. Seguimos innovando y promoviendo las relaciones de la policía con la comunidad para mejorar aún más la seguridad en nuestras calles. That's my honor to turn it back to Commissioner Bratton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Congratulations.
Mayor referenced the shootings and murders down to, once again, historic lows, particularly this first quarter versus any previous year. Additionally, this first quarter, January, February, March, in the CompStat era, beginning in 1993 as our base year, also down to lows for that 25-year period of time, robberies, burglaries, and car thefts. Best 3 months we've had in the modern CompStat era. Dermot Shea will speak to the issues around felonious assaults, issues around rapes and grand larcenies, but in so many of the categories that the first 3 months are record lows, and even those categories where we've seen an increase, when you look at overall trending, the numbers are, by and large, also trending in favorable directions, but he'll speak with more specificity to that. So again, in order of presentation, Dermot Shea, crime summary. We'll then bring up Carlos Gomez, Chief of Patrol, to discuss and seek your assistance dealing with the dirt bike situation, and then Jesse Tisch on some of the latest technology initiatives. Okay, Chairman.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'll just speak briefly to some of the statistics for the first quarter with a little more specificity. The end of the first quarter really continued the downward trend that we've seen in some of the more significant index crime categories in New York City. For murder in the month of March, we recorded 27 murders, which was exactly the same number as last March. So when you look at January, February, March, as the mayor mentioned, we are down 21%. We have recorded 18 fewer murders this year. The one category, which I'll get into as we move forward, where we have seen an increase is the murder by crime type, and that one specifically by cutting instruments. We are up fairly significantly, but we'll get to that. We have recorded 3 fewer murders this year than the prior low in the CompStat era. So really some significant statistics here. Shooting incidents. For the month of March, we recorded 67 shooting incidents in New York City. Last March, for scale, was 69. Similar to murders, we have never recorded in the CompStat era fewer shooting incidents than we have this first quarter. So really some significant statistics. When you look at the shootings, and we used to talk about pockets or precincts where we still have pockets of resistance, we're really talking now about almost blocks. So while we are having the best year that we've seen in shooting incident in New York City, we still have areas of concern. For example, Jesse's ShotSpotter couldn't have come soon enough, because that's one of the areas right now where we see a little bit of an increase. Manhattan North is the only borough with a shooting increase. All the other boroughs have seen huge decreases. Gun arrests. Gun arrests this year, 13% increase. We continue to focus every week at our CompStat process on the individuals that are driving the violence. As the level of shootings has come down to unprecedented levels, one thing has not changed. We still see approximately 20 to 25% of our shooting incidents where someone involved in that shooting has been involved in a prior New York City shooting. 20 to 25%. And when you look at that universe of individuals that are involved in repeated incidents, we see some of the same things that we've talked about before. Individuals on supervised release, individuals with prior gun arrests, et cetera. Almost 50% of that repeat shooting incident population is either on probation or parole in New York City, so that's fairly significant. When you look at other categories that we've seen lows this quarter, besides the homicides and the shooting incidents, robberies, burglaries, and stolen cars, grand larceny auto, have never seen this lower level. So as we move past now, when you talk about overall index crime in New York City for the first quarter, we recorded the second lowest index crime in the CompStat era, second only to last year, and you can see some of the charts behind me and in front of me. Last year, we were about 2% better. What's driving the increase in index crime? This is a part of the overall trending that we're seeing. A shift to credit card-related crime, a shift to checks, financial-related crime. Interesting in this type of crime because we're seeing victims that are learning their victims sometimes 3-4 months after something was stolen. So grand larceny is really what's driving the 2% uptick in crime for this first quarter. When you take a look at felony assaults, that's the other crime that we've seen a significant increase for this year-to-date. We're up 11% year-to-date. It's a raw number of close to 500 additional felony assault complaints. This is the category that within this category is the stabbing slashings that we've done separate press conferences on. About 18% of our overall felony assaults are made up of these stabbing slashings. And if you see the chart behind me, you see this is one crime type that differs from all the others where we talk about repeated lows. This is a crime, felony assaults, that really has been trending up over the last 10 years. Why? Because quite frankly, the changes in the laws each year adds additional components. So when you look at the penal law, there are more and more ways each year to commit a felony assault. This is done on purpose by our legislators to protect certain classes, whether it's assaults in schools, bus drivers, assaults that occur in prisons, et cetera. The orange part of that felony assaults at the bottom, we only show for the last 2 years. That's the stabbing slashings. Why? Because we simply did not have accurate statistics prior to that. And we look forward to, as we go forward, and really solidifying our data collection process to develop more and more robust strategies to combat this. I'll just finish briefly. I've touched on the major 7 index crimes and the shooting incidents. Transit related, we saw a big spike in transit crime against last year, at least, in January. That number came down in February. When you look at March transit reported index crime, it was nearly flat. It was +4 incidents. So we've seen a trending in the right direction in transit crime, and we expect that to further turn the corner as we go forward. Housing. We have recorded 1 additional shooting on housing property, citywide that is. And when I talked about pockets, that's what we're experiencing right now in Manhattan. 2 areas, in and around the Polo Grounds in northern Manhattan in the 3-2 precinct, And then in the 23rd precinct, specifically around the Jefferson houses, pockets of shooting incidents that, as Jesse talks about ShotSpotter, we're really looking forward to that helping us as we go forward, getting more and more data regarding the shooting incidents. But one shooting incident more in housing this year. In terms of homicides occurring on housing, it's exactly the same level as last year. And in terms of overall index crime in housing, there we have seen a jump, particularly in domestic-related crime occurring on housing property. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Chief Gomez?
Good afternoon. Like clockwork, each spring as the warm weather arrives, we see an increase of incidents involving roving bands, roving groups of motorcycles, ATVs, mini bikes, and dirt bikes in our streets. These bands and groups of motorcycle often engage in reckless driving through our streets. They disregard traffic control devices. They go through red lights. They go through stop signs. They speed on our residential streets. Oftentimes, when they get on highways, they will stop the traffic on that highway in order to perform stunts. They cause a great nuisance, and they hurt the repose of our communities here in the city. They endanger motorists. They endanger bicyclists. They endanger pedestrians, and they also endanger themselves. I'd like to show you 6 slides of some of this behavior, if we could put them up. This, as you can see by this slide, this was taken in the South Bronx. It's a group of dirt bikes, which are, by the way, ATVs and dirt bikes are illegal to operate within the city limits. But you could see the operators lack the safety equipment. There are no helmets, and with great certainty, these groups, as they get bigger, they begin to ride through the streets, taking red lights, going down one-way street, going on the sidewalks, endangering other residents. Next slide, please. This slide was taken on the Bruckner Expressway. You could see it's a large group of motorcycles and ATVs. They basically stop traffic. You see an individual there with a GoPro camera on his helmet. They shut down traffic in the middle of the day. This is usually on weekends, and they begin to perform stunts. And if you search YouTube, you could see a lot of these films. Next one, please. This is again, this is a group of ATVs and dirt bikes on the West Side Highway, disrupting traffic. Next. This is once again the South Bronx. This was not a highway nor a major street. This was down in Hunts Point. But again, they may begin riding these and performing stunts on these streets, but sure enough, they'll take it to the major roadways in our city. Next, please. And this shows the danger. This was also in the Bronx. This is a group of ATVs. You could see there's no helmets, just reckless driving through the streets. One of them is actually on the sidewalk, and if you look closely, you see two or three pedestrians trying to get out of the way and avoid injury. Next. And this photo captured an incident in January of 2014. This is up in Manhattan in Broadway, where they shut down traffic in the middle of a Saturday afternoon, and they engaged in these antics. In response to this nuisance and illegal behavior, we conduct coordinated initiatives and enforcement strategies. These initiatives are at the citywide level, coordinated by my office. They're also at the patrol borough level and at the local precinct level. They involve many resources. We utilize officers from patrol, from the precincts. We utilize officers from Highway Patrol to assist us in the highways. They will seal off exits as we approach from the rear and try to make some apprehensions. They will also assist us as we set up choke points as well as checkpoints, which are very similar. We utilize our new SRG unit on these weekend initiatives, auto crime as well as aviation. Aviation is key. They're our eye in the sky. From above, They could see where these groups are assembling, where they're riding, and they help guide our units on the ground to make an apprehension efforts. As for tactics, we utilize checkpoints, choke points, especially on bridges and on local streets. We apprehend when it's safe to do so. I employ a no-chase policy. We do not want to chase these individuals through the streets. I believe that causes even a greater danger to motorists, pedestrians, and themselves. As you see, most of the time they do not have helmets. They tend to be teenagers and other adolescents. We like to apprehend as they're gassing up in the gas stations, as they are rallying up in parks or in streets like the ones in the South Bronx that are deserted. But we gather intelligence from the public, and I'm going to ask for more of that information. We'll descend on these streets and apprehend as best we can. Fuel intelligence is very important. We monitor 911 as well as 311 for past problematic locations. Our FIOs, our field intelligence officers, they debrief every person arrested in these incidents, and they try to elicit information as to where these bikes and ATVs are stored. They got to be stored somewhere, whether they be at a commercial storage facility or a residential, someone's backyard or someone's garage. We also monitor social media for planned events and rallies, and we set up initiatives to address these rallies. At storage locations, we respond along with the fire department, with the Department of Buildings, and we do an inspection. You're not supposed to store gasoline at these locations, so if we find them, we seize them before they hit the streets, and that's the key. I'd like to remove as many of these from our streets early on this year before the warm weather gets here and it just gets worse. But we need more assistance. Certainly, we ask the public that if they observe these groups on our roadways to call 911, and we'll respond as quickly as we can and take appropriate action. But also, if they have any information as to where these bicycles, motorcycles are stored, let us know. We will do these business inspections and again, seize them. The public can also assist us in identifying planned events and rallies. And we're going to look to seize them before they hit the streets. Our goals are certainly to prevent and deter these incidents, but to minimize those that do occur, to make apprehensions and seizures of these motorcycles and ATVs. And we are publicizing those seizures that we make. I've asked all my precinct commanders to utilize social media, Twitter, and post photographs of the bikes that they seize. And if you look today in the 2-5 precinct Twitter, the 61st precinct Twitter, you could see seizures that were made just this weekend. And we utilize the hashtag Use It and Lose It, and also the hashtag Vision Zero. Being that it's opening day, I'd like to say that we're ahead of the curve in these initiatives. In the last 2 weeks, we've made 65 seizures of dirt bikes, motorcycles, and ATVs. We've also made a dozen arrests for driving recklessly, driving on the sidewalk, driving down the wrong way streets, and also for various VTL offenses. And year to date, we have seized 312 of these motorcycles, ATVs, and dirt bikes. That's more than double what we had at this time last year. And I have 3 more slides to show you. This is one of the precincts in the Bronx. This was from last summer. You could see a nice seizure of ATVs and dirt bikes. Next. This was last weekend, Easter weekend, up in Manhattan North. The motorcycles and the ATVs that we seized. Next. And again, this is up in Manhattan North, I believe the 2-4 precinct. The vehicles lined up before we send them over to the pound. So the message is clear to those that participate in this reckless behavior. You could injure motorists, you could injure pedestrians, you certainly could injure yourself. You may be arrested, and with certainty you're going to lose your bike, your ride, and most likely you will not get it back. Thank you.
Thank you, Carlos. We're looking for your assistance to, one, make the public aware that we are focused on this issue. It's not something that we're not paying attention to. We need them to call in when they see it. We have significant resources out every weekend looking to get these characters. And basically, the individuals operating these bikes, these knuckleheads, if you will, it's all about them. It's all about them showing off and the pack mentality. We will, a little later this spring, have a big crush-in that we'll invite you to, where we intend to take all of these things and just crush them, because they are illegal on the streets of New York. So in 80% of these instances, they don't get them back when we seize them, and we'll be working with the courts to get that up to 100%. So if you are having one of your wheels taken away from you, the intent is to take it away from you permanently and destroy them. We need your help to bring the public attention to the behavior of these characters, and we will very aggressively go after them and go after them in everything that we have. It's only a point in time till they create a serious accident involving innocents as well as themselves, and our efforts are going to focus on trying to prevent that from happening. So thank you for your attention to that. Jesse Tisch now is going to update you on a couple of enhancements to the technology that you're all familiar with, that thanks to the support of the Mayor, District Attorney Cy Vance, the forfeiture funds, the tens of millions of dollars that are being made available to us, that we're continuing to expand our efforts, as well as with the city budget dollars that the City Council has given us for the shot spotter system. Jesse.
Good afternoon. Today, the New York City Police Department is announcing a massive expansion of our ShotSpotter program to include almost all of northern Manhattan from river to river, with a particular emphasis on central Harlem. This is the first ShotSpotter implementation in the borough of Manhattan. In addition, we have increased coverage in Brooklyn North and the Bronx to include all of East New York, that's the 7-5 precinct, as well as Castle Hill, Soundview, and Parkchester, for a total of 9 additional square miles of coverage. We have been building this capability out for the past year. This expansion of the program comes on top of the already 15 square miles of ShotSpotter coverage that has been live and operational since March of last year in Brooklyn and the Bronx. The maps on the screen behind me, okay, good. The maps on the screen behind me show in blue our existing coverage areas, which we have called Phase 1, and in orange, the Phase 2 expansion. The first map covers patrol boroughs Manhattan North and Bronx, and the second map covers patrol boroughs Brooklyn North and Brooklyn South. The new catchment area went live on Friday, April 1st, just past midnight. In the 4 days since going live, we have already had 12 alerts in the new zones, which include 6 in Manhattan North and 3 each in the newly expanded Bronx and Brooklyn areas. For demonstration purposes, I'd like to focus on one alert of note from the new zone in Manhattan North. At 05:15 hours on Saturday morning, April 2nd, just over 24 hours after we went live, officers from the 3-2 precinct in Harlem received a ShotSpotter alert to 465 Lenox Avenue for multiple shots fired. The alert is on the screen behind me. Here is the audio that came in with this alert. Responding officers recovered 15 shell casings from 2 different types of guns, a 9mm and a .45 caliber, in the immediate vicinity of 133rd and Lenox, where ShotSpotter directed them to go. Shortly thereafter, Harlem Hospital alerted the police to a walk-in gunshot victim. Officers were able to connect the victim to the location of the ShotSpotter alert. The investigation is ongoing. At the end of March, which represents the first full year of our initial ShotSpotter deployment, we have recovered 43 firearms associated with ShotSpotter alerts, including 12 already this calendar year. The percentage of alerts without 911 calls has remained constant at 75 to 80% of gunfire incidents in New York City going unreported to 911. But that's not all. Today, we are also announcing that we will be delivering ShotSpotter alerts and associated audio of gunshots directly to the smartphones and tablets of officers in the vicinity. This means that officers will be receiving near real-time direct notification of ShotSpotter alarms, even without relying on dispatch. We believe that this advancement, which surfaced as a result of feedback from officers in the field, will further trim response times and presumably increase apprehension and evidence recoveries. I should note, the NYPD is the first police department to implement direct-to-smartphone notifications of ShotSpotter alarms. Imagine you're an officer in Harlem and you get a real-time notification to your smartphone. It's the notification in gray. We'll give a demonstration in a second. Within seconds of shots being fired in your precinct, in that notification, you get the exact address of the gunfire. You can also hit a button to hear the audio of the shots being fired and swipe to get a sense of the history of the location you were responding to. Let me show you how this works. On the screen behind me is a live projection of an actual NYPD smartphone. You see in gray a ShotSpotter alert to the phone. We see the address the ShotSpotter sensors have triangulated to. In this case, it was 1015 Boynton Avenue in the 43rd Precinct. We also see the type of alert. In this case, it's an alert for multiple shots fired. When we click on the alert, we can play the audio of the gunshots direct from the smartphone. As well as review a history of the location officers are responding to, including prior history of 911 calls for shots fired. We can see in this case, there have been 4 such incidents in the past year to the same address. This feature that I've just demonstrated to you will roll out on smartphones and tablets of all NYPD officers in the middle of this month. So just to quickly recap what we've announced, we've installed an additional 300 gunshot sensors on rooftops and light poles across 9 square miles in 3 boroughs. In addition, we are leveraging our new mobility platform to carry out Commissioner Bratton's vision of making the NYPD the most technologically advanced police department in the world. And all of this comes directly from the ideas and the ingenuity of our cops in the streets. As Commissioner Bratton has said, this represents tomorrow's policing today. Thank you.
Thank you, Jesse. Later this week, I believe on Thursday, Jesse will be finalizing the distribution of the last of the 36,000 smartphones that are going into hands of all of our officers. And then at the Police Foundation a benefit on Thursday evening, we'll actually be giving out the last smartphone. So amazing accomplishment, 36,000 of these devices in the hands of officers. And as you can see, the information that goes to these officers, there's no place in America, and I would argue probably in the world, where officers have as much information in the palm of their hand as they do here. The significant safety feature of this is they can hear the shots. They have information of previous history, so even as they're responding to the location, from an officer safety standpoint, they have a sense of what they might be coming up against. ShotSpotter is also developing, as their acoustics capabilities continue to improve, the ability to tell us what type of firearm is being used. Is it a shotgun? Is it an AK-47? Is it a .45? So officers will also understand, is it several guns? What's the type of weapon they may be coming up against? All critical information for officer safety. I want to compliment Jessie and her people for the development of the technology, but certainly the cops for their increasing use of it and the ideas that are forming the new ways in which we use it. And certainly on Thursday, we'll thank the Mayor, Cy Vance, and the District Attorney's Office and the Council for the funding that have brought about these technology enhancements. Again, there's not a police department in America, and I believe in the world, that is doing as much in this area as is occurring here. It benefits the citizens of New York and certainly benefits the safety of our officers. With that, I think we'll do police-related matters, and I think, Mr. Mayor, you're planning to stay for off-topic in mayoral matters immediately after we get done with the police questions. So if we could move quickly into police-related questions. If we could start off on topic first, and then we can move into Bob Boyce. When we get him up, he can answer any of your crime-specific questions.
With the idea of sending alerts from ShotSpotter directly to officers without going through an NYPD sort of dispatcher, are there any plans or ideas about expanding that to other alerts, similar to maybe complaints about road bikes or other kind of incidents?
I'll ask Jesse to speak to that. The question he's asking is that the ShotSpotter alerts, do they go directly to the officers, in a sense almost bypassing the dispatcher or being done at the same time as the dispatcher? And then Jesse can speak to the second portion of your question, please.
So the ShotSpotter alerts, like any 911 job, go directly to the phone, but they also go through dispatch. So if the cop doesn't see it on the phone, he or she will also get it over the air. So I didn't mean to imply that we've cut dispatch out completely. And in terms of the other types of 911 jobs, those like the ShotSpotter alerts also go directly to the phones. So an officer can set their smartphone to alert them to any type of job in any geographical location that they want to know about, and they can make the phone vibrate or beep or whatever they want to be notified of the job, in addition to getting that information over the air.
Question. I describe this as a big problem in the sense of the danger and risk that they present, that these clowns present, in terms of their pack mentality, where they have no concern for public safety at all. They're up on sidewalks, they're in and out of traffic. I've seen them a number of times myself when I've been out. And make no mistake about it, we're treating this very seriously. And it's where we're looking for your help on the public part before this gets to a level where serious injuries, in fact, do occur. You widely reported on an incident, I think it was 2 years ago, shortly after the mayor and I came in, with the situation of the young couple with their baby and the incident involving all these clowns. So they haven't got the message yet, and one of the ways to get the message is these bikes that are so near and dear to them. When you take a look at them, a lot of them are dressed up. They put a lot of time and energy into it. They're not going to be too happy when we take those damn things and crush them so that they can't be used. We used it very effectively against drag racing in Los Angeles when I was out there, and it killed them. To see that car out there, we took the cars, lifted it up 100 feet in the air from a crane and dropped it on the ground, and we very quickly stopped a lot of the drag racing initiatives in Los Angeles. We're going to do the same thing here.
Let me add real quickly on that, just quick on this. The public can really help on this. This is an absolutely inappropriate activity. We don't accept it. I commend the commissioner for a very aggressive approach, and I think when these perpetrators experience more and more enforcement, they'll be dissuaded. But the public can help us by reporting what they see and also reporting these storage areas. If anyone knows of someone storing their ATV or dirt bike, knowing that any ATV or dirt bike is illegal within the confines of the 5 boroughs, let us know. The best way to stop these guys is to get them where they store these bikes before they ever get on the road.
Commissioner, if I could just follow up the stabbing and slashing initially starting March 22nd. I wonder how you feel about it, given the fact that there were a couple of stabbings that occurred Friday.
Well, let's make no mistake about it. Stabbings and slashings aren't going away. It's the reality. We live in New York City. We live in the world. You're always going to have them. What we're attempting to do, however, is it is one of the few crimes that is going up. At the same time, it's going up at a level that is of concern to us. So that's the additional effort that we're putting into it. And I'm comfortable that over time, like just about everything else we focus on here, it will go down. Shootings, as you recall, when we began this effort back in 1994 with Jack Maple, we were running hundreds of shootings a week. Now we're reporting 100 some odd shootings a month. And so the focus on shootings, now aided by technology, has been of significant assistance. So I'm comfortable that this effort that, again, we announced about 2 weeks ago at a similar conference such as this, will over time help out. But as Dermot has also pointed out, that the overall felonious assault issue, some of that increase, a significant part of it, as a result of the changes in the law, changing about charges about choking, assaulting bus drivers, et cetera. So as anything, we try to focus attention on it, and we usually, what's the old adage, you can expect what you inspect. So by going after the dirt bikes, we expect that problem will decline over time. By going after the stabbings, we expect that that problem will also decline over time.
Get back on the guns. It seems a large number. What do you sort of attribute that to? Is it just better police work? Is it better intelligence? Are there more guns on the street?
Well, for example, that we've already talked about how stop, question, frisk activity has declined this year. We'll probably do about 25,000. So what we're doing is precision policing. Instead of stopping 700,000 people, we're stopping 25,000, and about 18 to 20% of those we stop are found to be engaged in a crime or carrying a weapon. So rather than stopping 650,000 who had nothing, precision policing. Similarly, precision policing in terms of Commissioner Miller's FIOs working in the precincts with Bob Boyce's detectives. Their gun seizures are up dramatically this year, even higher than that 17% we talked about. There are those that talk about somehow or another the idea that New York City police officers aren't as aggressive as they used to be. Well, I don't see people walking up surrendering firearms to us. They're being done by hard police work, good investigative work. So a lot of the seizure increase is precision policing, as Dermot indicates, knowing who's got the guns, who's carrying the guns, and focusing our attention on them rather than hundreds of thousands of innocents.
Let me jump in here on this. You know, a few years ago, I think there were some parts of the strategy that were backwards. The city was alienating the very people that we needed to protect and that we needed to be partners and to provide information. And we didn't have enough technology. What we see now is the opposite dynamic. The new technology is making a huge impact. ShotSpotter is playing a great role not only in addressing crime at the moment the report comes in, but also is playing a huge role in the investigations, which means we're able to find guns and make arrests because of the information from ShotSpotter. At the same time, by reducing the tensions between police and community, we're getting more cooperation from community members. And one of the things I talked about in 2013, I believed it in my heart, and Commissioner Bratton and his team have proven it to be true, that the more we engage communities, the more information would flow, the better the work of our cops would be. So now as the neighborhood policing strategies are reaching more and more precincts, we also have more and more examples of residents coming forward and giving tips to police that are resulting in arrests, that are resulting in gun seizures. So my simple summary would be, we used to not have enough technology and the right technology. We used to have the wrong relationship between police and community. As the technology has been improved and the relationship between police and community has been healed, all these pieces now coming together are improving the ability of our cops to actually find that small number of truly violent criminals, but also to get at these guns. These numbers are outstanding, and it shows aggressive, smart policing.
Now, to echo also the CompStat procedure that Chief O'Neill and Dermot Shea head up has really focused much more on the quality rather than quantity aspect of this. And as Dermot's indicating, with the technology and all that we're working with, the ability to focus in the city rather than even on neighborhoods down to the block level as to where this crime or these types of crimes are occurring. So we're just getting better at it all the time, assisted significantly by the technology, but also the leadership that Dermot and Bob and Jimmy bring into the CompStat sessions. Okay, you're speaking about the rest of the postal worker that I've already indicated that I'm not happy at all at what I observed in the various videos we've looked at. The lieutenant involved in that incident, who was one of the 4 and was in charge of the unit, has been modified, taken off the street, got a badge taken away. Internal Affairs has just finished their interviews with the other officers and some of the witnesses. So based on that, those officers have been taken out of the condition unit, remain on patrol for the time being until I make a final decision as to what exactly occurred at that incident. The issue of the uniforms. We have a patrol guide procedure that is enforced by the Chief of Patrol, Chief Gomez, that requires those officers to be in uniform. So part of the Internal Affairs investigation will be to understand why they were not, what their specific assignment was that would have necessitated them being in plain clothes. The vast majority of what conditions units work on don't require plainclothes assignments. And I'm also very concerned that 4 officers who were supposed to be out on assignment instead lost most of their day processing what began as an arrest and ended up with a summons. So I don't see that as a particularly useful use of my police officers' time, and particularly in circumstances where they're also interrupting a U.S. mailman in a delivery truck, and the concerns about leaving that truck double parked, causing an emergency problem situation in one of our neighborhoods. So needless to say, I'm not happy about it, that in terms of that we've got enough to do in this city without officers basically making what may be an inappropriate arrest. Okay. I'm sorry? I can't speak to that. I have not seen that portion of the investigation yet. Okay.
In terms of the so-called knuckleheads with the ATVs,
Knuckleheads, nitwits, clowns, whatever you want to call them. Any of those descriptions is very appropriate.
Got a bunch
your
of them.
words, a lot of people in the
It should be all of your words because that's what they are.
Please use those
Yeah,
words.
A lot of people in the community definitely very nervous about those bikers. They make a lot of noise. But a few years back, there was some sort of push to see if there was an area in the city that they could ride them legally like an other.
Let them go out to Long Island and ride them. We have very little park space in the city as it is to give it over to these clowns on these bikes. You want to get one? Park it someplace else where they have space to do it. The city of New York really does not have the space to set up a space for this type of activity. That's the reality of it.
Commissioner Shea, I have a question. Domestic violence, you say, is driving crime in housing. Is that, why do you think that is? What are the factors that are causing that to happen? And what portion of the homicides are domestic related?
In terms of domestic violence in housing, it's not a new phenomenon. It's something that when that law changed, and it's approximately 4 to 5 years ago, if you look at housing crime over time and you look at when that law took effect, and I'm referring to the obstruction breathing strangulation clause, when that made certain actions now committed a felony, you saw the felony assaults in housing really spike, and it's gone hand in hand. Is it any more so this year? No, I'm not seeing that. And then the factors that cause it, that remains to be seen.
Is it poverty? Is it close living conditions?
I mean, I'm sure there's a number of factors involved, but trying to isolate 1 or 2 at this time, I'm not prepared to.
What about homicides?
In terms of homicides, in housing specific, they're flat for the year. I'd have to get back to you on whether or not any of those housing homicides are domestic violence. I could think of a few off the top of my head that were not, but before I definitively say there's none, I'll get back to you.
On the ATVs and the dirt bikes, when those seizures are made or those arrests are made, how often are there are guns found or weapons or other evidence of related crimes or anything in relation to those leading to other crimes?
Well, there are certainly, on occasion, we do find contraband and weapons. I can't recall a firearm, but just on Easter Sunday, I believe in the 2-5 precinct, an individual had a large amount of heroin and cocaine on his person, and he was stopped as a result of one of these initiatives. And I think I may have failed to mention that over 80% of these bikes and ATVs that we seize are unclaimed. They are not returned. You have to get them back, you have to prove ownership, and they have to be properly registered. So over 80% are unclaimed, and then as the commissioner said, after a certain amount of time, they are just destroyed and sold as scrap.
Commissioner Shea just referenced that last year he's aware of 3 shooting incidents in which the perpetrator was on what would be described as a dirt bike type of vehicle. Okay. In the back there, please.
ShotSpotters, the mayor referenced arrests stemming from ShotSpotter reports. Do you have a percentage or a number of arrests that stem from that? And the second question related to that, you got shell cases that you find on ShotSpotter situation respond. Have you been able to connect any of those cases to previous crimes that you have under investigation?
One, Jesse referenced the number of guns that have been recovered as a direct result of ShotSpotter notifications. Some of those officers responding so quickly that they get there while the suspects are still there with the guns. Other instances, they find the gun. Other instances is the collection of evidence, the shell casings in particular, which then oftentimes, all of the shell casings will be analyzed for DNA as well as for the ballistic imprints, the idea being to match them up with other guns that we know have been used in crime. So Chief Boyce has been very praising of how these assist his detective investigations, as well as the cops with the prompt notification instantly that if they're in close proximity, they can respond. And also with our vehicle location system that is now starting to be more fully implemented, it allowed the dispatcher and the patrol supervisor to really look very quickly to see what cars, sector cars, are in the vicinity of these shootings, so to direct them immediately to the scene. So all these technologies are all coming into play. ShotSpotter, vehicle location systems in all of our cars now are marked cars, coupled with the after-the-fact investigations of recovered casings and guns at the scene.
We have time for 2 more. You have one in the back there?
The New York Times had a story this morning on drug arrests for officers posed as addicts,
I'm sorry, I cannot hear your question.
New
Anybody
York
hear?
Times buying drugs and pretending to be addicts. That was in the Times today.
You're talking about the story that's on the web this morning, which I'm assuming will be out there sometime the next day or so.
is that a law enforcement tactic? And if so, it seems to accomplish what you
Buy and bust is a long-term tactic used in this department as well as probably most law enforcement agencies in America. The New York Times story that, from my perspective, had an awful lot with the individuals who were arrested, and I think one line from our chief of narcotics investigation. I think the story might have been a little fairer if it had more of our explanation of what we're doing. I think out of 1,500 words, I think about 23 of those words were a question to the chief, who we spent almost an hour reporting. So we'll wait to see what the Times actually puts in the actual article. But the article, I thought, was pretty biased in terms of the direction they're going with it. The tactic is a very essential and effective tactic, and one that will continue in this city. Okay.
Can I ask Chief Boyce to talk a little bit about this one carjacking that ended up being a fatal situation, fatal stabbing?
Sure. A terrible incident this morning in 7-2 precinct on 24th Street. We had an individual parked his flatbed car there between 5th and 4th Avenue. He went inside, let the car run, let the truck run, I should say. He came out, and the truck was just pulling off the block. Someone had stolen it. We had a male with a hoodie up, jump in the car and take off, and he turned northbound on 4th Avenue, Dean. At which time the male, or the owner of the car, the 63-year-old male, chased him down 4th Avenue and caught him when he was stuck at a light. As you know, 4th Avenue is a heavy populated thing. Something happened there. Apparently, he tried to get back into the truck, at which point he ended up under the truck, and that perpetrator who stole the truck ran over him. Looks like the back wheels. Again, this is preliminaries that we have thus far. 2 blocks away, that perpetrator dumps the car on 22nd Street between 4th and 5th again. So that's where we are right now. We have a crime scene up there, and that's where we're going with this now.
Thanks, Chief. Thanks all. Police staff can step forward.
Which precinct?
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, it's all yours, sir.
All right.
We've warmed them up for you.
Yes, it warmed them up. All right. Thank you, please. Okay. Let me just say something up front before we take questions on any and all topics. There was an article in the New York Post that was just dead wrong, and I want to talk about for a moment, referred to our anti-graffiti efforts. We'll move these ruffians out here. There we go. Referring to our anti-graffiti efforts by the Department of Transportation. The article was absolutely off base. The City Department of Transportation has not changed its anti-graffiti efforts related to bridges and highways at all. We continue to believe that robust anti-graffiti initiatives are necessary. Further, as many of you may recall from my State of the City address just weeks ago, we doubled the overall city investment in anti-graffiti initiatives through the Economic Development Corporation. So just want to set the record straight that we have units within the Department of Transportation to get rid of graffiti on highways and bridges. Nothing whatsoever has changed. The only thing that has changed is a doubling of the city's investment in other anti-graffiti initiatives. And we're very, very focused on graffiti as a quality of life problem, and we believe the doubling of resources will make a very big impact. With that, open to
Just to follow up on the other question about the NYPD Fine Bus program. What is that addicts being arrested for low-level offenses in scenarios where the drug dealer is not pursued or apprehended?
The concept of the operation is to get to the drug dealer. So you can talk to NYPD about the strategic and tactical details, but the idea of this kind of operation is to get to the dealers, to get to someone higher up the food chain. Yes?
The Daily News of New York One offered Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton a chance to debate. I want to get your thoughts on that. And also, do you think it's important, like what do you think about the importance of local media outlets like the Daily News of New York One, getting a chance to put all the candidates on more issues?
I think that's ideal when you have a debate in a particular state to have representatives of that state's media asking some of the questions, because every state has different issues. So I think there really should be a debate. I'll state my disclosure. I'm a Hillary Clinton supporter. Hillary Clinton's made abundantly clear that she's ready, willing, and able to debate Bernie Sanders. And by the way, she does very well when she debates Bernie Sanders. And I've said very clearly that if there's any logistical challenge that the Sanders campaign is having because they had an event that they were trying to work on the schedule of and they had permitting concerns, look, this is a very important moment for the people of New York City and New York State. Having a presidential primary election that matters for the first time since 1992, certainly on the Democratic side, is a very, very important moment. We want there to be a thorough discussion of the issues. We're certainly going to extend every courtesy to each and every campaign to make sure their events get permitted, and we'll work to speed that process. So my hope is that the debate will get scheduled, and any other events that need facilitation we'll certainly help with. I'm not going to choose among all the fine media outlets of this city, but those would be two excellent choices. Sally.
You said in recent days and weeks that you were only informed of the Livingston issue when you read about it. Do you think that anyone in your administration or in DCAS should have brought this to your attention sooner last year when the data restrictions were lifted?
So let me begin at the beginning. The outcome was wrong. It should not have happened. We had a facility that should still be a nursing home. It's now, I don't know the exact status, but it's either on its way to being luxury housing or is luxury housing. That's not what I believe in. And if I had known anything about it, I would have said, no way. So a mistake was made. Now we have to go back and figure out what happened. Bless you. That's why there is a DOI investigation. The subpoenas have been issued. That investigation will continue rapidly. What I've said is we need to get down to the bottom of what happened here. Who who's responsible, but also were there policy problems, were there rules and regulations? What caused this? And then we need to systematically fix this problem going forward. We've put a hard stop on any and all alterations to deeds because we don't want to see anything like this happen again. But the full investigation has to take its course, I hope, quite quickly. We will then decide on whatever policy changes may be necessary and whatever consequences there should be for people involved. And we are pursuing legal options in terms of the company that ultimately, I believe, did not tell us the truth. Yeah, if they had informed me, I would have said, don't do it. So the answer is yes.
Hillary Clinton will host the Women for Town Hall with Congresswoman Yvette Clarke and the First Lady of New York City on Tuesday.
I think that's a fine choice of hosts.
Yes, how important is it for the First Lady to attend that event?
Charlene McRae is a strong Hillary Clinton supporter, fellow Wellesley graduate, fellow feminist, and she really wants to do all she can to help get Hillary elected. And I can say, because I've spoken to her about the event, she's honored to play a leadership role, and she's going to work very hard on behalf of Hillary Clinton.
You said that the city was lied to in the Rivington House issue. The city has a mechanism for preventing having to just take the word of the people that it deals with. There was a restriction in place. There was a halfway measure that could have been taken to just convert it into a for-profit, not all go all the way. Why wasn't that investigated or done in this case? And the last line of defense is your own Office of Contract Services. The head of that office, you said, is the perfect person to clean up that mess. She signed off on this deal.
I am convinced that Lizette Camillo is the perfect person to make DCAS work more effectively. That is a strongly held view from working with her over the last few years. The question here is, I want to know the same answer you're looking for. I want to know what got missed, because it just shouldn't have happened. And if it was a problem in the checks and balances, if it was a problem in the rules and regulations, I want to know what went wrong here, because it just shouldn't have happened. But I'm not going to judge any individuals until we've had a full investigation.
I'd like to go back to the motorcycle problem. And I know you've been really invested in terms of Vision Zero.
Yes.
So, if you could comment on the message that the administration is trying to send to these people who use motorcycles, dirt bikes, ATVs, and also what kind of a message the public question these things will send to people.
Yeah, my message is these are dangerous. These bikes, these motorbikes and ATVs are dangerous. They don't belong in New York City. We're coming for them. We're going to be very aggressive. We're going to take them away. They're not legal. So all it takes is for a police officer to find someone with one of these illegal vehicles, and right there they've broken the law. We have them dead to rights. So I agree entirely with Commissioner Bratton. We're not only going to take them away, we're going to crush them on TV to make a point that we don't accept these in New York City. They don't belong here. And the public can help us. Report them when you see them, but particularly help us if you know where they're stored, because the best way to protect the public safety is for us to get them before they ever go out on the road. Yeah.
I understand the value of the question is public. Was there any point where you considered maybe selling them somewhere else rather than just destroying them outright?
I think in this instance, the message is important, and I think we have to show how resolute we are. I'm not familiar with it. Obviously, I don't approve of any effort to censor, messages from Israel, but I don't know the specifics. I'd have to look into it. I'll give you an answer when we know more about it.
It's striking a lot of people as strange that there's, the big celebratory $15 minimum wage and paid family leave rally, and today you're not there, and Secretary Clinton's there. Can you just explain a little bit about why not be there, or if there's some, just tension that continues to...
I think you guys are a little hung up, with all due respect. I think this all makes a lot more sense than the way it is being reported. And I think, bluntly, there's a lot of editorializing in the reporting. It just doesn't make sense. This is someone who I had the honor of being the campaign manager for long ago. I have a strong relationship with. I wanted to see a very clear vision for where she wanted to take this country. When she put that vision out there, I said I'm with her 110%. And I'm going to keep doing everything I know how to do to help her. Now, as to the specific rally, the rally came together. We got short notice, which is understandable. That's normal during a campaign. We could not adjust the schedule. And that's fine. There'll be plenty of other events that I certainly look forward to doing with her in the coming days.
I was actually referring more attention to Governor Cuomo. Sorry, I didn't get to finish the question. But
I still think you're hung up.
But I just wanted, if you could reflect just a little bit on how you feel like you influenced sort of getting to this place in the Democratic Party where the governor is signing a paid leave bill today and the $15 minimum wage, which a year ago or so he had called, not possible.
I think there's a process of change going on in this country and going on in our party. And I'm proud to have played some role. I don't want to overstate the role. I think the greatest credit in this one goes to the Fight for 15 movement, which has been exceptional and was counted out years ago and proved tremendous tenacity and strength. And I talked a lot. You'll remember the day, I think it was about a year ago, when the Fight for 15 movement had rallies in dozens and dozens of cities around the country simultaneously. And so that's where the first credit belongs. But progressives around this country over the last few years have been making more and more of a difference on these issues. In October of 2012, I laid out a vision related to taxing the wealthy so we could have full-day pre-K. A lot of other progressives around the country have pushed the issue of higher taxes on the wealthy. A lot of other progressives have pushed for higher minimum wage. We've done that here. Obviously, we did that with the $15 minimum wage for our city workers and for our nonprofit workers. Like other cities, we added 1 million people with paid sick leave. So we've made a major focus early on paid sick leave, ultimately giving that benefit to 1 million more people. This is part of something much bigger. And that is what I started working on with my fellow progressives very systematically a year ago when we organized the Progressive Agenda, when I went out to Iowa and spoke about these issues there. What's abundantly clear is the country's becoming more progressive, the Democratic Party's becoming more progressive. The question of income inequality, which I've had the honor of speaking about since 2012 and 2013, is now front burner, front page news in this country where it should be. And the public are demanding answers and responses. So I think it is a great step forward that New York State has acted. I commend Governor Cuomo. I commend the legislature. I commend our friends in California, our friends in Oregon. Something very big is happening here. And I'm going to do everything I know how to do to deepen this trend, because this is only the beginning. There's a lot more work to be done. And so I'm going to continue to work with progressives all over the country because we have to do more to address income inequality.
Mayor, this year, a lot of the homicides that have occurred have been domestic in nature.
Right.
Staten Island is dominated by them, the shelters, the high-profile shelter killings, the ones in the Bronx. And you've talked a lot about catching people at the nexus between mental illness and violent tendencies. Yep. But yet it persists that some of the homicides that are occurring have people who have been treated at times at city facilities, city agencies, hospitals with a psychiatric issue. Do you feel enough is being done? And how do you strike the balance between committal and release? And how do you assure success once someone is released?
Okay, lots of questions within that question. Let me do my best. On the questions related to committal, only medical professionals can make those decisions, and we have to honor that. But the process until this administration came along was exceedingly loose. And what we found in incident after incident was people had mental health problems that were documented. And it was documented they were not getting the treatment that they needed. And they had a history of violence that was documented. They had been arrested, they had been charged, they had been convicted of acts of violence. And yet there was no effort being made to address those two problems and how they interconnect. We created a new approach, and it has just begun. So I want to emphasize, your question, is there more work to be done? There's absolutely more work to be done, because this will take a huge culture change to get agencies to work together that never have, because this is NYPD, it's the health department, it's HHC, it's a whole variety of agencies that are going to have to work together to act on each case as it emerges, but also ultimately identify people who have these characteristics and thank God have not committed yet another act of violence, and getting to them in time to get them into treatment, or for a medical professional to determine if in fact they should be committed to some type of mental health facility. This process has begun. It's going to take a lot of work because it's never been done before. Certainly no city's tried to do this systematically that we know of. So what I've said very squarely to the leaders of our agencies is, if we don't crack this code, if we don't figure out how to do this, we will miss opportunities to stop violence. And so I've given them a very clear mandate. We've put a lot of resources in already. We're going to be putting more in, and it obviously connects with the bigger initiative my wife has begun, NYC Thrive, in terms of making mental health services more available to New Yorkers and earlier in the lives of New Yorkers. Now, I think, by the way, when NYC Thrive fully takes effect, I think you're going to see more people get treatment and stay in treatment, because it comes with elements that actually encourage continuity of treatment. Because right now, if you stop getting treatment, there's no consequence. We want to create consequence. We want to maximize that continuity. But my mandate to my team is, we've got to get at that nexus you refer to strategically and break through.
Two more questions.
Yes.
You said on the revenue to do, but you didn't learn for several months. Are there protocols where agency commissioners or deputy mayors know to tell you about things? And how aggressively are you personally managing city agencies?
I'm aggressive. In fact, someday I'll make Goodman admit that my decision memo process is a very effective tool for avoiding things like this, and in fact forces everyone to communicate and be accountable. So what I say to people is, and remember, I've spent a lot of time in government, so I have a decent sense of what each agency does. If it's something that is strategically complicated, if it's something where there are real substantive issues and philosophical issues, I would rather they come to City Hall than be held at an agency. And this one was a no-brainer to me. There's no, I mean, all you have to know is know me. I would never let a nursing home turn into luxury housing if I had a choice. Go ahead, Goodman. Since you're supposed to say, since I was referred to, I want my 30-second rebuttal.
That's exactly right. So do you, is there any way that you're ensuring that you're not left out of the loop in the future? I mean, why do you think you got left out of the loop in this case? And how are you trying that?
Again, that's why we have a full investigation. It's not so much about the question of the loop. First, we have to figure out what happened and why. And again, what decisions were made, what checks and balances were in place or not in place, what policies were governing over the decisions. And so I don't want to assume anything until the investigation is completed. But what is, look, I'm very proud of being a hands-on leader. And what this is further evidence of is, when in doubt on something that's truly consequential, and I consider this truly consequential, people in agencies should seek the guidance of City Hall. And if it's something important, it should come to me as well. Now, it's a huge government, so there's plenty of things that don't rise to that level, obviously. But this one, you know, here's my simple answer. Someone should have said no farther down the food chain, and if they didn't know how, they should have come to me, and I would have said no very, very quickly. Last call.
Mr. Mayor, back to the dirt bikes, ATVs, and motorcycles. The commissioner said that in California, they brought one from a train.
He said those were drag racing cars, yeah.
So if there were a place in New York City where you can drop whatever this is from a train, would you like to see that happen?
Again, there are times in life when you have to make a statement. So I look forward to standing with the commissioner when we crush a number of these dirt bikes and ATVs. He called it a crush-in, like a sit-in. He called it a crush-in. I look forward to joining with him. It's, you know, the folks who do this think they have a right to bother everyone else and to disrupt their peace and to endanger their safety. They just don't. They don't have that right. It's against the law. So we'll send a very vibrant message to them that we're coming for them, and we will prevail. And I think it is consistent with one of the things that the commissioner said. Once we focus on an issue and we put real resources in, things change. And we are going to be very, very focused on this issue, and we're going to change the dynamic in this city and get these guys off the street. Thanks, everyone.